Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in, and yes, that is the PlayStation 5. Now, we've spent about a month with the PlayStation 5, but it has recently gone on pre-order in India based on when you are watching this. So what we're here to tell you is whether it's worth it or not. And the short answer is that it is worth it. But here are a few things to consider. I'm pretty sure there is way more demand for this console in India than there is supply, and the sad thing is that the digital edition isn't available in the country at launch, which means you are going to pay a full 50,000 rupees to get this console if you're fortunate enough to be a part of the pre-order or when stocks come back in. So let's quickly break down this console because we've been using it for a month and take a look at everything it has to offer. And for more content from the world of technology, gaming and reviews, why don't you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you are notified when we upload a new video. Let's start with the build and design of the PS5. Now, it is built pretty sturdily and pretty well. I mean, it looks like the Tower of Mordor from where you're looking at it. It can be kept horizontally, and as I'm sure you can see from the process, it isn't an easy process to get this from vertical to horizontal and back. Sure, you got to remove the base stand, rotate it, plug it in back. Remember, the stand that comes with the digital edition is a little different than the one that comes with the disc edition. So because the disc side is where the stand goes. The orientation for where you're going to put in the disc, there have been a lot of issues in the past, but the design is something that is unique. I mean, when you have the LEDs out here on the side that glow blue or orange if you've kept it in standby vertically, it looks nice, but vertically it's really tall. I mean, the Xbox Series X is considerably shorter and considerably narrower in depth when you look at it. Kept horizontally, sometimes when you look at it from a particular angle, because of the way the stand fits on the console, it kind of looks like it's levitating, which makes it look really cool. But then again, the wavy, curvy design on the side isn't something I'm really a big fan of. Maybe I like the industrial design of the Xbox Series X a lot more, but it's something that kind of ends up growing on you. I mean, anyone who's entered the room where the PlayStation 5 is kept definitely turns their head towards it and knows exactly what it is. Now, considering the color of the console, it isn't exactly white. It has a slightly off-white color to it, and been a month since I'm using it and it has gotten a little dirty, so you are going to end up cleaning the console a lot more. The side plates are removable and you can clean it from the inside. That also gives you the option to customize the side plates, which is something we will only know in the future as to how many peripherals Sony officially releases for this or how many of them come from third parties. Speaking of connectivity, up front you do have a USB Type-C port and a USB Type-A port. You have two USB 3.0 ports at the back, an Ethernet port, HDMI 2.1 port, and the power port. Now, the thing is, if you are going to play your PS4 games from an external drive, it is going to ask you to connect it to the ports at the back only. So that's something to keep in mind. The front ports are left a lot clean. So completing the design, we'd like to say that love it or hate it, you really can't ignore the way the PS5 has been designed, and it has just one thing in mind with this design, and that is cooling. The entire top to the front out here is all vents with that big fan just sucking in air, and the entire back is an exhaust where they're just pushing out all the hot air. Yes, we have gamed for hours at end. Put your hand at the back and you can really feel warm air coming out, but the console is whisper quiet. It looks like Sony took all those PS4 jet engine memes quite seriously. Moving over to the next part, which is this. This is the DualSense controller, and boy oh boy is it a revolution compared to the past. Now, I'm someone that really liked the DualShock 4 controller that came with the PS4, but it was still a bit of a toy-like aesthetic when you compared it to, let's say, what the Xbox had with the Xbox One controller with its form factor. However, this time around, Sony has really gone all out, making this controller way more ergonomic, which can give the likes of the Xbox controller a run for its money. Sure, you still have the same analog sticks that you found on the PS4, and I'm okay with that. The face buttons are slightly more away from each other, which may be a problem for some of you to press button combos of, let's say, X and box together, but it's not something that I had a problem with. The touchpad is slightly bigger, but the biggest change comes with the triggers. Now, before we get to the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback, which we'll talk a lot more about in the performance when we talk about games, one thing to note, and this is something you will notice if you have a PS4 controller, is between the shoulder buttons and the triggers, there is a bit of a plastic border out here, okay? That for me was always a point of hindrance because I felt that the shoulder buttons were slightly smaller than I'd like. As you can see out here, the shoulder buttons are really nice, big, chunky and clicky, which makes them really easy to control and press. Whereas for the triggers, yes, A game like Call of Duty Cold War, Spider-Man Miles Morales, the game that comes pre-installed with the console, which is Astro's Playroom, all show off the capabilities of this console. So let's talk about Astro's Playroom for a minute. When you're walking on metal surface or when you're walking through rain, there is noise that comes from the speaker of the controller as well as mimicking the sensation of walking on those surfaces. So how does it mimic the sensation of walking on metal? Well, look at it this way. If you're someone that has an iPhone, you know that the way the iPhone vibrates, especially the newer ones, gives you more of a haptic feedback rather than traditional vibration motors. If you have one of the newer MacBooks or a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro, know that there is no physical click in the trackpad. It's actually a haptic feedback motor that mimics the sensation that you're actually clicking something, but nothing is physically moving, right? It's kind of tricking your brain into thinking that you're pressing a physical click. That's exactly how this controller works. If you have a Nintendo Switch, not the Lite, then those HD rumble features are kind of a baby version of what this controller offers. So the vibrations, especially for games that have optimized it like Astro's Playroom or in Spider-Man Miles Morales, where one half of the controller vibrates in exactly the same way your smartphone would vibrate when you get a message. That's when Miles gets a message on his phone in the game. That is the sensation this controller is trying to mimic. Now, coming to the triggers, in Spider-Man Miles Morales, you can actually press the trigger to a certain extent and then it gives you a resistance right before he shoots out a web. Again, in a game like Astro's Playroom, when you take on the role of a spring, the triggers become really tight, just like a spring would when you're trying to compress it before it's released. In Call of Duty Cold War, every gun has a different level of tension between you going into the sights with the left trigger and shooting the gun with the right trigger. It goes beyond just simply, it has this cling kind of a resistance to it. Of course, you get used to it, but the first time you play a game with it, you're like, wow, I wish I had more of this. And it really does have an impact. I mean, future upcoming games like Ratchet and Clank, Deathloop, Returnal, all of them are going to exploit the DualSense controller, and I really can't wait to experience what they have in store. Especially if you remember a game like God of War on the PS4, every time you recalled your axe, it gave you this click with a vibration in your hand on the DualShock 4 controller. Well, let's see what Ragnarok does with this one. Moving over to the user interface, now Sony has rehauled the entire PlayStation UI and it looks phenomenal because from the get-go it's in HDR. We use the PS5 with an LG B9 OLED TV and we can tell you that if you have an HDR TV that is going to give you really good HDR colors, it is going to look absolutely phenomenal. But the UI isn't without its problems. So let's get the good stuff out of the way. The PlayStation Store is now integrated into the game's UI, so it's not a separate app, and the UI seems to be a little more streamlined for you to access games. Same can be said for the games library. Now on the home screen, you have a row of all your games, which has a really nice wallpaper about the game that covers the entire screen, which really looks nice and vibrant. It also has an audio track from the game. So let's say Devil May Cry, you have all the 3 playable characters on screen with this heavy rock metal music playing just to give you a glimpse of what the game is all about. You can go into the media tab, and right now the media apps are quite limited. You do have Netflix, you do have Prime Videos, you have YouTube, you have Twitch, you have Apple TV, but sadly no Disney Plus Hotstar for a country like India yet. Another thing to note is that this console cannot do Dolby Vision and does not do Dolby Atmos. It does have its own 3D audio, which you can use by simply plugging headphones into the controller, and it does give you that experience of having sounds coming from a more 3D perspective. The fact that they can achieve that with any pair of headphones connected to the 3.5mm jack is brilliant, and you can actually go into the UI and change the 3D audio profile to suit your needs, which actually makes the experience a little more personalized. Now, coming back to the UI, like I said, this console doesn't support Dolby Vision, nor does it support Dolby Atmos, at least as of now, which is a bummer, especially if you plan on using this as a media device as well, because it can support 4K, Blu-ray, HDRs if you have a lot of physical media with you from the disc edition at least. Now, coming back to the controller just for a second, is it also has a mic button out here, which can mute the mic. It has a mic, and we've tried this. Now, if you've been following Digit, you know that we did stream Cyberpunk 2077 playing on this console, and I was talking to all our viewers through the mic of the controller. That was kind of just to test it out, and it worked brilliantly. Most of you guys said that the voice was clear, it was loud enough, and you could hear me, so that's great. Another thing is that if you're going to text your friends and write messages, you no longer need to use the touchpad to type out your messages or the D-pad to navigate the alphabets. All you can do is say something like, hey, do you want to play Ghost of Tsushima tonight? And it's going to write that message absolutely clearly and correctly without any spelling mistakes. So it has a 90% correct recognition ratio, at least in my case with my voice, but that's great. Some spellings got wrong, like Spider-Man Miles Morales spelling got wrong when we tried that, for example. So it isn't exactly 100% perfect, but it is really up there with the best. There are a few more problems I had with the UI, which kind of have been fixed by the time we've been recording this, but I'm still going to mention them just so you're aware. If you have a PS4 and a PS5 version of a game, like let's say DMC or Call of Duty or Spider-Man Miles Morales, then it kind of ended up playing the PS4 version sometimes without letting you know that there was a PS5 version available as well. This has been fixed. So now if you launch the PS4 version of a game, it does give you the option that, hey, there's a PS5 version of this game. Same thing for the game's library. Now you can navigate the library by having the games, let's say, alphabetically or by console version, but you would see the PS4 and the PS5 version of the same game, which kind of made your game's library look a little bloated. I think Xbox has handled this in a much better way by giving you the Series X/S tag. Now, another thing which I felt was a problem was save data. You have to actually take your PS4, upload your save data to the cloud, and then download it back onto this console. And if you're not a PS Plus subscriber, then you actually need to put in a physical pen drive, copy it from your PS4, put the pen drive back in this console, copy it back. It is a process, and it can get annoying for some. So when you pick up this console, you are going to have a handful of exclusives that you can really enjoy, be it Demon's Souls, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and of course third-party games which include Assassin's Creed Valhalla, DMC, Dirt 5, and many, many more. But a great thing about this console, and I think Sony's probably done this to offset the increased price tag of games, is give you something called as PlayStation Collections, which gives you 20 games, 10 first-party games and 10 third-party games to enjoy from the get-go with your PlayStation Plus subscription. And PlayStation Plus subscription is about $3,000 a year, so it's not very expensive. And you also get 3 games a month, like you did in the past. You got 2 games for the PS4, now you get 2 PS4 games and 1 PS5 game. So you're sorted with your subscription. Of course, the subscription pales in comparison to what Game Pass has on offer, but something's better than nothing in this case. The last problem I want to talk about, and I'm not really sure if it's fixed or not, is because I haven't actually gone back to it, is when I connected this to my television and my television was connected to a soundbar, the audio wasn't coming from the soundbar. I had to go into the settings of the PlayStation and change the audio output to an AV receiver and call it a 2-channel output, and then I got the output that I was actually looking for. Maybe this is fixed, I don't know, because once I've done these settings, I haven't really gone back to try and change them. So there you have it, guys. That was our review of everything we've experienced with the PS5. It is a great next generation console. Yes, the SSD is tremendously fast. Spider-Man Miles Morales loads in fast travel in a mere 2 seconds. Even a game like Cyberpunk 2077, which isn't optimized for the PS5, actually loads in under 10 seconds if you are fast traveling, and in 15 seconds from a cold boot. But the 825 gigabyte internal storage is very limiting, especially when you consider the fact that only 667 GB is available as a user, and the expandable slot that Sony has given for you to put off-the-shelf M.2 cards isn't yet active. That is a bummer. Also, you can install your PS4 games to an external hard drive connected to the USB port, but you cannot copy your PS5 games from the internal hard drive to an external hard drive for safekeeping in case you don't want to re-download them, because this is India. We still don't have bandwidth that can download a 80 GB game in a matter of a few minutes or a few hours. It is slower. So these are some lifestyle improvements that the console can definitely have in the future. We have read a lot of reports of the adaptive triggers breaking, of some rumbling noise coming from inside, of a certain part of the RAM which is soldered onto the motherboard not having adequate heatsink. But in our experience, we haven't faced any of these problems. And as you can see, we are recording this video in Delhi winter. So we are going to have to wait for the summers to kick in to know exactly how much noise this console makes. I hope I've been able to cover as many points as I can in this review. If you have any more questions, you can always let us know in the comment section below, and we will do our best to answer them. But stay tuned, and like I said, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, because not only are we going to bring you our review of the Xbox Series X, or probably it's already live on the channel depending on when you're watching this, but we are also going to work on a comparison, and we will let you know of the 2 Xbox Series X and the PS5, which is the console for you. So stay tuned for that, and happy gaming.